South Africa's economy is in the doldrums, with the latest figures showing the largest contraction in decades. While it doesn't come as a surprise, what most South Africans want to know is where are we going to from here? Joining me to discuss exactly that is the head of Economics, Claude Baziak, and the South African Federation of Trade Unions, Zwelinzima Vavi. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me here on The Fix. Mr. Baziak, let's start with you. You have brought out quite a hefty report and a look back over the economic management of the economy by the democratic government. And it says, using a range of measures, you are saying that South Africa will rank near the bottom of a table of more than 180 countries in terms of security, similar to Nigeria, have the prosperity akin to Bangladesh or Ivory Coast. And it also says that there's a significant decline from its current position, though it should fare better on governance and welfare measures. That is not a very healthy outlook for South Africa. Some have even suggested that we might be a failed state in 10 years. What are your key reasons for saying so, Mr. Baziak?
Karima, good to be here, and thank you for inviting me. Well, the key reason is the data, really. Our approach is rigorous. It's based on a database of about 180 countries that we have built, which we have devised to advise government and corporates who want to better understand country risk and deal with it, whether in terms of development strategy or in terms of their own investment and performance strategy as businesses. So it's a rigorous system where we treat all the countries equally, and we derive the data from hundreds of different sources and indicators. And the idea is to try to measure state performance in a very global way, which is not simply including economic data, but looks at the entire spectrum of state performance indicators, from security to governance to economic performance to social welfare, and on that basis position the countries one next to another effectively over a period of 15 years. And the idea is better understanding where a country is located compared to other countries internationally, and then try to understand who the neighbors are at any particular point in time, and the direction, the past trajectory of that country and potential future trajectory. And then to go into it and understand why a country is performing one way or another.
Absolutely. Mr. Vavi, thank you for joining us in this conversation. That is a devastating indictment on the political economy of South Africa, thereby Economics. On security, for example, we are similar to Nigeria and Ukraine, prosperity akin to Bangladesh and Ivory Coast. Is that your summation as well? Do you think that within the coming decade, if nothing changes, South Africa will in fact become a failed state?
Karima, I think that we are already entering the arena of a failed democracy, a failed state that would have betrayed the working class, the marginalized, poor, the Africans population, the black in general, that was looking forward to ensuring that post-1994 we can lead and live the dream of a better life for all the people of South Africa. The reality is, even before the COVID crisis, we had become the most unequal society in the world, and we have become the top 6 country in the world, according to the ILO, in terms of the rate of unemployment. We had become the #1 country in the entire world when it comes to youth unemployment. And we had had a population, according to the last official statistics of Statistics South Africa, where over 55% of the population were living in poverty. But according to the latest information, up to 63% of our population live in poverty. If you look at the numbers, the figures, 71% of the African population lives on 1,300 rands a month or less. And that's an indictment, Karima. Mm-hmm. We fear that post the COVID, these figures are going to look like a Sunday picnic. They're going to get worse. And so I know that Claude speak about 2030, things will be bad. But from our experience as the working class, things are absolutely intolerable at this moment.
Okay, let's hone in on the economy specifically. Mr. Baziak, your report is also scathing about government's economic policy since the advent of democracy, although you locate the genesis of the weakness of the economy within the apartheid system. You argue, for example, that there are no growth strategies for the economy. Government will obviously take a different view. And just for our viewers, I did ask the Minister of Finance and his deputy and also the African National Congress's head of its Economic Transformation Committee to participate in this conversation. They are not available. You are quite devastating in saying that, you know, what the ANC has put forward in the last 20-odd years or so has not taken us to growth, and you are also suggesting that nothing in its current policy will get us to growth. That's quite damning, Mr. Baziak.
Karima, it's what the data shows. It's not a political statement. It's not an anti-ANC statement. And to tell you the truth, I don't at all believe that the policies that are proposed by the opposition in South Africa will either result in a change. The foundation of the conclusion, and I take a step back, is based on again, the data that we have. You know, economists have a tendency to take a bunch of random economic data and put them together and try to understand whether an economy is performing well or not, and assume that, well, in the next 2 years, things will get back to basics. We work on, 15, 20 years of analysis, and there's a theory of growth behind what we do. And the point is that, economic growth has to come from somewhere. And in South Africa, the economic system that democracy inherited was based on growth that was intended to generate well-being and welfare for the white minority. It was a very narrow first world that had effectively created a third world within its midst and outside on the periphery through the homelands. And the fundamental premise of that economic structure was the exclusion of the black majority and its economic exclusion so that to advance political exclusion. Now, democracy changed the latter, but it didn't fundamentally change the former. And why is that? Because in fact, and this is borne by data, and my comrade Vavi has just said it, how are you supposed to grow an economy sustainably when the vast majority of the population is still excluded from the productive system? And in fact, when the increase in the people employed in the population is unable to catch up with the increase in the total population. I mean, South Africa has one of the highest rates of unemployment in the world. It has the highest rate of youth unemployment in the world. And for the past 20 years, the focus has been really on consumption and government expenditure, while the real economy has disappeared.
Okay, Mr. Baziak, hold that thought. Let me shift the gear. I mean, we've diagnosed the weaknesses in the South African economy. There's an agreement between both of you that the policies over the last decades or so has not generated the kind of growth that leads to the kind of equality or less inequality in South Africa. Mr. Vavi, the president is saying that he is busy putting a plan together. In fact, the reason why the finance minister and his deputy can't participate is that they are still putting the final touches to their plan. Do you have any hope that what they will come up with will address the growth crisis in South Africa, the unemployment crisis, the inequality crisis, considering that, treasuries and governments around the world have been thinking out of the box and doing things differently, partly as a result of COVID-19. Do you expect something different, something out of the box from President Cyril Ramaphosa when he does take the country into his confidence about the new economic plan?
Unfortunately not. We expect nothing new, nothing fundamentally different from what have brought South Africa almost to its knees. If you talk the economy, we've looked at the ANC document proposal. We have seen what the business is proposing in NEDLEC, and those two documents on their own tells us that we're talking to a group of elites and the ruling class that is totally in denial about the devastating impact neoliberalism and now austerity programs are having on the economy of South Africa. None of them are willing to go to the fundamentals. My friend included, Claude, we looked at what we are proposing. None of them are looking at the fundamentals as to why the South African economy is failing. And let me just, in 1 minute, explain. We inherited a colonial economy, an economy that was based on the extraction of our mineral resources for them to be exported to the former colonial headquarters or increasingly now China and India. We have not changed that structure. We remain a neo-colonial post where the main activity is about extraction. Our industrial base have not been developed to take advantage of the fact that we have the deposits of platinum, of iron core.
Okay, Mr. Vavi, your minute is up to explain. I mean, I know where your head is going with this. I mean, your argument is well known. Let's come to the realities of what we face. Mr. Baziak, you don't agree necessarily with Mr. Vavi's solutions of how we go forward. What exactly are you putting on the table as Unomics? What should government be doing differently to what it has historically done since the advent of democracy to get the kind of growth that will see an uptake, on so many levels, from investment to jobs to issues around, inequality?
Okay, so just to respond to Vavi, I think he's absolutely right. We agree on the diagnostics, but we don't agree on the solution. And where we disagree mostly is the notion that South Africa has remained a neo-colonial structure in terms of the exploitation of the natural resources exported. In fact, that's not the case. The mineral resources are actually quite low. And that is the problem of South Africa, really. From a structural standpoint, South Africa is no longer a resource-rich country in terms of the role that the resources play in GDP creation, in employment creation, in export revenues and the likes. But there are no other economic foundations. So in parallel to that, mineral exploitation has been decreasing and policy has been very inimical to the mining sector. But it also policy has been inimical to most sectors, manufacturing, and obviously the crisis in electricity generation. And growth in the past 15 to 20 years has been supported mainly by consumption and by government expenditures, with very little investment and savings, though very little foundations, and almost no FDI to compensate. So if you want, the engines of growth are very, very vulnerable, very weak. And as growth has collapsed, government expenditures have increased, mechanically increasing the debt. Now, I don't expect much from the strategy because I think the strategy will be more of the same, as Vavi has said. For me, the key issue is that we are in a very, very dangerous trap where the country is not resource-rich and it is not labor-rich in the sense that our vast supply of labor is not being utilized productively.
Okay, Mr. Baziak, let me just give Mr. Vavi the last word. We're literally running out of time. If you were to have some advice for the President on the new economic plan that he's meant to table, before us very shortly, what would it be? You've got 30 seconds, sir.
The first thing would be take the head out of the sand and look at the reality that is unfolding in South Africa. Change the structure of the economy, do away with the export-orientated economy, build local economy, build local capacity, build an economy that can utilize its resources at home, ensure that we address the poverty of property of the majority, address the land hunger of the majority, and make sure that the overwhelming majority of citizens can participate as equals in the economy. They can consume the goods that are produced in South Africa.
Okay, Mr. Vavi, your 30 seconds is up. Unfortunately, we've run out of time. Mr. Baziak, thank you so much. There's, of course, much more to discuss, and we will continue to unpack the economy with other voices as they become more available. Thank you so much to Claude Baziak there from Unomics, and also the Saftu General Secretary, Zwelinzima Vavi. You've had your fix for the week. See you again next Sunday. Thank you so much for watching.